All right, so if Elon Musk were to build his own phone, what would that look like? Here's my thoughts. So a few days prior to this recording, Elon Musk tweeted the following. Apple has also threatened to withhold Twitter from its app store, but won't tell us why. So as you probably know, Elon Musk now owns Twitter, and apparently Apple is threatening in one way or another to withhold the Twitter app. Now we don't know why, but as through some other tweets that came through, Elon Musk basically said, well, maybe he'll go ahead and build his own phone. So let's assume that this does happen. And what would Elon phone or Elon Musk's phone look like? And is it even possible? So first thing, is it possible? Absolutely. This is 100% possible. There's a lot of people out there that think that it's not, but let's be realistic. This guy created a ton of things that people thought were impossible. Back when he created PayPal.
So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry.
People said that you couldn't make payments online. No one would exchange payment information like that. Now we have PayPal, we have all different, commerce is probably mainly done online, it seems, for a lot of people in the world. That was proved wrong. Most people said you couldn't have an efficient electric car. Now we have Tesla and many other electric car companies that work just fine. Solar panels were not that good, could not be utilized properly. He built Solar City. Space travel, not possible, so he built SpaceX. Then they said, you know what, it's not possible to really land rockets. It's just not a feasible thing after using them. So what does he do? He lands rockets. If there's anybody that can build a phone company, it's going to be him, and that's probably going to be pretty easy for him to do. But what would that phone look like? And I think that's the really important question, because let's not lie, the best phone that's out there is going to be the iPhone. Coming from someone who has a background in Android, who's written books on Android, and has been very active in the Android community and still active in the Android community, it does pain me to say that a lot of the time. The iPhone is just a solid device. My first iPhone I had for 2 years, and the only reason I got rid of it is because I gave it to one of my children and I upgraded and got a new one. That phone was completely fine. It's still running excellent. And in fact, if I didn't upgrade and give my old phone to my child, I would still be using that phone. The same can't be said for a lot of Android phones, unfortunately. There's just various different problems, and we won't get into that. That's a different topic altogether. But what would an Elon phone look like? In my opinion, there's going to be 3 core things that we're going to see if this does happen. So this is very speculative, but in my opinion, what we're going to see are these 3 things. So let's hop right into it. Number 1, apps are going to be web-based. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me here. They've been disagreeing with me forever about this, but the web, in my opinion, is where we are moving with all this. The web gets more and more and more powerful. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, what about Maps integration? And what about these things integration? There's a lot of stuff that's on the horizon that's going to make these things a lot more easy to build and integrate with. Native notification support, everything like that. A lot of these things are going to be able to be integrated with. So I think what we're going to find is that all of the apps, or the majority of them, are all going to be web first. Why is this? Because Elon knows and has said it throughout various different tweets and mentions that Apple and Google kind of control this whole market and have a lockdown on the market. And due to that, it can create a problem, because if Apple or Google don't agree with your app for whatever reason, they'll just pull it. Now, I had a friend of mine who had a very popular app, had tens of millions of installs. He lived off of that app and had user-generated content on it. And as soon as you start having user-generated content, if there's something that either of the companies don't like, they can remove your app for that, even if you didn't develop the content at all. Again, it depends on what that company wants. Now, the web doesn't have that problem. You can't just remove a website because you don't like it. You just don't go to the website and you don't visit it. So I think Elon sees this, and it's much more of a freedom of speech and so forth type of play, to where it's going to be much more open and have the availability to have different types of apps out there a lot easier. All right, so that's number 1, is all the apps are probably going to be web-based. You'll have deeper integrations, which leads me to number 2. And number 2 is that these apps are going to have deep native integration. Most likely, he'll build different types of integrations into the platform where you can send a native notification from the web. Now, a lot of this stuff is sort of possible now, but it's just going to be default standard on a web-based phone first. So if your website needs to send a notification, it can do that very easily. If there's a push notification service, it can do that, and it'll interact with the web, launch that web, PWA, whatever it might be in this future. I don't know what that looks like, but it's going to have deep integration. You'll be able to call into various different Maps APIs, into various different system APIs, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, all from the web, and it'll be much more resilient than it is in its current state. And number 3, we're probably going to see some level of deep integration with desktops. And what that means is we'll see integrations with Mac as well as Windows. One of the great things about the iPhone is its deep integration with its desktop and Mac counterpart, because I can easily drop files back and forth. I can copy and paste things back and forth. Once you're used to this deep level of integration and switching between the 2 devices, between the phone and the computer, you can't really go back. And I think that integration will will be one of the goals if a new phone like this does come out. We will see that deep integration either through maybe an installed daemon type of app that runs and gives you all that same functionality. And you'll see that on Mac and on Windows as well, which will really be the game changer, especially if the device acts very much like an iPhone. And that's what I think will also happen too, is if this device does get built, this new phone, it'll be very performant, very much like iPhone, simply because of that user experience is so good. So those are the three things I think are going to happen if a new phone does get developed. There's a couple of things that we have to keep in mind here too. Number one is a lot of people are going to say, well, what about messaging? Text messaging and all these other messaging is important. And what about the existing apps? Those will probably be supported in one way or another. And in regards to messaging, this is something that Elon has built for various different companies multiple times. There's messaging built into PayPal. There's messaging built into Tesla. You don't think there's messaging on SpaceX? There's very resilient messaging. And furthermore, he now owns one of the largest messaging platforms in the world. So extracting out the messaging components out of there and repurposing it into a phone, possible, very possible. The other thing is, a lot of people think, well, building a phone is very difficult. You'd be very resilient to do that. Phone systems require resiliency. Are you worrying about power efficiency? Are you worrying about battery? Are you worrying about communication resiliency? These things are things that Elon has already done. Remember, Tesla, super energy efficient. We've got everything electric cars. We've got Solar City, we've got Tesla solar panels now. Elon has thought through a lot of these issues in regards to power efficiency. SpaceX has to be insanely resilient against faults. Otherwise, lives are at stake. Millions and millions of dollars are at stake. A lot of bad things can happen if SpaceX is not resilient. So a lot of these really complex systems that are way more complex than phones, Elon has already developed and created. A phone is actually probably something a little bit easier in the grand scheme of things that Elon could actually probably build. If he does build a phone, I do think it's gonna be web-based. I think we're gonna see a focus on web-based applications with deep native integration, but who knows if that's gonna happen? We'll have to wait and see and find out.